It started with a splash. Not just water, but tension, humiliation, and disbelief, all soaked into the fabric of Keanu's shirt as he sat there, frozen. The studio lights burned above, cameras still rolling. A moment that should have been just another light-hearted guest appearance on a talk show turned into something no one could have predicted. People in the audience gasped. Some laughed nervously. Others stared, stunned. The waitress, young, visibly shaken, her hand trembling, held the empty glass like a weapon she hadn't meant to fire. Keanu slowly stood up. Not angry, not yelling, just quiet. Time seemed to slow down. You could feel that something deeper was happening. This wasn't just a celebrity scandal. This wasn't tabloid drama. This was about dignity, about restraint, about how a man chooses to respond when everything in him has the right to react. Keanu's eyes met hers. Not with rage, not with confusion, but something else entirely. Compassion. The host tried to break the tension with a joke, but no one was listening. Security began to move. The producer shouted off camera. The waitress backed away, tears rising now, regret flooding in faster than the water she'd thrown. And Keanu raised his hand. No, he said gently, stopping them all in their tracks. The silence in the room was deafening. That one word, spoken with calm conviction, shifted the atmosphere. It wasn't the reaction anyone expected, and yet it was exactly what made Keanu. But how did it come to this? What could have pushed someone so far? The truth, as always, is never simple. It began weeks earlier, in a place far from the studio lights and cameras. A story most never heard. A moment no one could predict. And it would all lead to this one unforgettable confrontation. Let me take you back to where it started. It began in silence. The kind of silence that follows you home. That lingers in the back of your mind, long after you've clocked out. Her name was Marissa. She wasn't famous, just tired. A single mother, 2 kids. Bills piling up faster than she could pay them. Double shifts, burnt coffee. A landlord who didn't answer her calls. And a dream she'd long forgotten how to dream. The restaurant was her battlefield. The kind of place where smiles were part of the uniform and dignity was something you learned to trade for tips. Until one night, he walked in. Keanu Reeves. Yes, that Keanu, Hollywood's kindest man. The myth, the mystery. The man whose name made every head turn. He didn't ask for anything special. Sat quietly, tipped well, looked people in the eye when he spoke. But for Marissa, it wasn't that simple. Because that night, her boss told her to serve him personally. Not because she was the best waitress, but because she was They thought a celebrity would tip big. They were right. But it wasn't the tip that stayed with her. It was the way he spoke to her. Like she mattered. Thank you, he had said. Not just for the food. For being here. I know it's not easy. She nearly cried right there. And for a moment, just a moment, she remembered who she used to be. But then, as life does, things turned out the next day. The internet blew up. A photo of Keanu and Marissa. A joke post. People saying he was flirting with the waitress. Others calling her desperate, thirsty, a gold digger. Her manager pulled her aside. You're a distraction now, he said. Too much attention. She was fired the same day. Her dignity collapsed. Her children cried. And all the kindness she'd felt from that one interaction twisted into shame. As if she'd done something wrong by simply being seen. So when she was offered a quick gig, last-minute job as part of the studio waitstaff during a celebrity talk show, it felt like redemption. Until she saw the guest list. Keanu. There. Again. The face that reminded her of the life she'd lost, and everything she'd been blamed for. It wasn't rational. It wasn't fair. But it was real. Resentment doesn't ask permission. So when she saw him smiling again, on stage, surrounded by applause while her life had fallen apart behind the scenes, something broke, and in that fractured moment, the glass left her hand. Water everywhere, and the world watched. But what they didn't see was the pain underneath. The quiet scream of someone drowning in silence, finally making a sound. And what would Keanu do with that sound? That answer was coming. The splash echoed like a gunshot. Gasps filled the studio. Cameras froze. Security began to move. Keanu Reeves sat soaked, hair clinging to his face, shirt dripping onto the glossy floor beneath him. For 3 seconds, no one breathed. The hostess's mouth hung open. The audience was paralyzed, unsure whether to laugh, scream, or pull out their phones. And Marissa, she stood there, empty, glass in hand, her expression a mix of fear, rage, and heartbreak. Everyone waited for Keanu to react. They expected a celebrity meltdown, a raised voice, a demand for security. But that didn't happen. Keanu looked at her, not through her, not around her. At her. Really saw her. Then, slowly, he stood up. The crew rushed forward, mics scrambling, hosts muttering apologies, assistants asking if he was all right. He raised a hand. Wait. The room paused again. Water ran from his fingertips as he looked at the woman who'd just thrown it in his face. You okay? He asked gently. The room gasped again, but for a different reason. Marissa didn't know what to say. No, I'm not, she whispered. But I didn't know how else to say it. And then it poured out. Not the water but the words. I lost my job because of you, she said, voice trembling. Because people made up stories. Because kindness, from someone like you, didn't belong in someone like my story. A long, raw silence followed. Keanu took a breath. His voice was quiet. Kindness always belongs, he said. The host tried to cut in, tried to steer things back to jokes and applause, but Keanu didn't let him. He walked toward Marissa, and then, he sat on the studio floor, right beside her. Now, both of them were seen, not as a star and a scandal, but as two people. Just people. You didn't throw that water at me, he said calmly. You threw it at everything that tried to drown you. Marissa's lip quivered. I was just tired. I know, he replied. Security stood awkwardly nearby. The host whispered to a producer, but Keanu wasn't done. He turned to the camera. To anyone watching, he said, kindness is not performance. And sometimes the people who break in front of us are already broken behind closed doors. It wasn't a movie. It wasn't a script. It was messy, human, raw. The kind of moment no one writes, but everyone remembers. And somewhere, in that brokenness, was a healing beginning. The moment went viral. Within hours, clips of Keanu sitting calmly on the studio floor, drenched and compassionate, flooded every platform. Some headlines mocked it. Keanu the monk, watered down Hollywood. But most didn't, because something about the way he handled it, something in that silence. That steadiness cut through the noise of celebrity drama. Marissa didn't vanish into obscurity after that. She didn't write a book or sell her story. She didn't need to. Instead, Keanu quietly paid for therapy sessions for her. No press release, no cameras, just a handwritten note. It read, everyone deserves a second draft. Keep writing yours. Months later, Marissa gave her first interview, not to promote anything, but to speak out about emotional burnout, mental health, and the loneliness that hides behind forced smiles. She didn't blame Keanu. In fact, she thanked him. He didn't shame me, she said softly. He saw the worst version of me, and still believed there was a better one underneath. As for Keanu, he never spoke about it again. He went back to filming, back to riding the subway, back to paying for strangers' meals when no one was looking. But something had shifted. People looked at kindness differently, not as weakness, but as courage, not as passivity, but as a quiet rebellion against the rage that fills so many rooms. These days, studios even began offering wellness support to staff, not because of a policy, but because of a moment. One moment. The kind where a man soaked in shameful silence chose grace instead of ego. And maybe that's what we're all waiting for. Not the hero who hits back hardest, but the one who pauses, listens, and chooses. Understanding, because the world doesn't change in grand speeches or breaking headlines. Sometimes, it changes when someone just chooses to sit down beside you, even when they didn't have to.